Hello, everybody. Welcome. It is 9 o'clock and it is Thursday. So that means it's UK Cowboys time. How are we doing, cowpokes? You all right?
Yeah, doing great. I got my jab last week, so that's why I wasn't on, but seem to be fine now, so didn't really have too many symptoms afterwards.
1 week closer. Here we go.
You youngster.
Yeah. This is when we know we find out how old everybody is by how early they get their vaccination or how late. Yes, yeah. Hello, guys. Yeah, we are deep into the off season now, so we have officially started the Positional Breakdown Series. Started last week with the quarterbacks with old Heckma Harrison with us from Cowboys Media. Good show. If you want to watch a good fun one with old Heckma Hype, go back and watch that one. Talking about the quarterbacks as well as the schedule that came out. So came out the same day. So right on the money with that one. But today we are looking at running backs, guys. So keeping it simple at the moment, but we soon get into the nitty gritty of it all. But yeah, before I get into the news and updates, I'll just get your feeling, and everybody at home as well. Let us know what you think. What do you make, and I'll ask you both, on the running back position, especially for a team that is a run-first team? What do you make of it in general?
I think in terms of if you're a run-first team, which I think it's sort of creeping back into the game now. I think teams realise how valuable the clock is. It was such a passing league for a long, long time. But if you've got a top 5, a top 10 talent, you tend to lean on them a little bit. There are plenty of teams that see it as a huge strength, like ourselves, like the Cowboys. And there are teams who just seem to get the job done. Off the top of my head, the Patriots are always running back by committee. The Cardinals can be running back by committee at times. There's quite a few. So, like in terms of if you've got a good one, you'll use them. If you've got an above average, you'll supplement them with another player, in my opinion. But if you've got a stud, you'll run them into the ground.
Yeah. I think as well. You've seen schemes like Denver, who always seem to manage to pick up either a late round draft pick or a UDFA, and they take the league by storm. Running for 1,000 yards behind that line. It's more to do with the offensive line there, obviously, and the zone blocking scheme that they run out of that. But excuse me a sec.
We're live.
We're live. Yes. Certainly. I mean, you need to have some sort of running game, unless you've got a team like Kansas City who can just pass the ball willy-nilly down the field. You really do need to. You can't be one-dimensional in this league, and the more powerful both facets of your game are, the more deadly you're going to be. And I think even last year, I mean, it took some of the pressure off Andy Dalton, Garrett Gilbert, Ben DiNucci, when we didn't have a great running game last year, in that Zeke only had 1 or 2 games over 100 yards. Pollard seemed to be a good sort of home run threat a couple of times last year. But other than that, when things were going bad, it was just everything was going wrong. But I think this year, I feel positive about it. I think we're coming back. We're going to be coming back at full strength.
Yeah, I mean, we can look into that as we break it all down. I mean, I've got some nice statistics and numbers that will help put it all together, shall we say. So it helps us figure out why we're saying Zeke will come back into form. And there is a good reason. There's lots of good reasons. Some of them are pretty obvious, like the O-line. The other is less so obvious, but we'll look into that. But let's start off, guys, as we do every week. It is the news and update section. So rookie mini camps have started. So finally we get to talk about Cowboys players. I know it's the rookies and I know it's the mini camp. And a lot of people, they do the old Debbie Downer and say, like, look, it's only rookie mini camp. Don't get excited. Unfortunately for you, I'm a Cowboys fan, and I don't care what it is. I'm going to get excited even if it is just rookie mini camps and dig very deep into all of it. But let's start off with some of it, guys. Reggie Robinson, the cornerback from last year, he's moving back from safety back to cornerback. So he's having a bit of a carousel with his positions back there, but he's moving back to corner is what they're saying. In other news, Mike McCarthy said Dak is going to be okay for OTAs, but he's definitely cleared for camp. So that means he's going to be there for training camp, which is good news. Micah Parsons playing middle linebacker. I don't know if it's going to stay that way. They have said they want to use him sideline to sideline. If that's the case, being in the middle makes most sense, but we'll see where that goes. In other news, Jabril Cox, Nashon Wright, both getting interceptions. I know, again, it's rookie mini camp and all the rest of it. But the Jabril Cox, I don't know if you've seen it. It's quite an interesting interception, mine. I mean, he was about 35, 40 yards back, and he still made that interception. Just going to show how good his coverage and athletic skills are, if anything. Nashon Wright, mine, got himself into a bit of hot water. I don't know if you've seen with Richard Sherman. Over a comment he made.
Yeah, well,
did you see that, Greg?
I haven't seen it, to be honest. No.
Go on, Lorne. Go on.
Well, when he was drafted, he said he was going to be a much more athletic Richard Sherman, and obviously everybody that was the soundbite that everybody picked up on, all the retweets, everything like that. So he was quick to DM him through Instagram, I think it was, and sort of put his point across and say, look, I'm just trying to compare myself to you. I know I've got that sort of level I need to, that's where I'm aiming for and everything like that. And Richard Sherman actually said, yeah, no problem. And, you know,
it led to a funny gif.
Yeah, it's hit me up if you need any help and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, it's worked out well in the end, but, you know, everybody was, obviously the media were trying to make something out of nothing.
I mean,
definitely.
It's not like Richard Sherman to bite on any bait, is it?
Yeah, that's true.
I think to give Richard Sherman his due, he didn't really do anything. It was more obviously, I think, damage limitation by Nashon Wright that, you know, he wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to suddenly get this guy hunting him down. So
yeah, and all riled up. Yes. So there was that. The other one as well is Israel Izzy Mukamar is moving to safety. We did do a write-up on that before it happened in the week. So that's quite interesting. I like the move. I think it works out well. And the other one, I don't know if you've had chance to watch it. We'll post it up possibly tomorrow if we can get it up. Was Kelvin Joseph's interview at rookie minicamp. A lot of people saying about, you know, with the rapping, the rapping and the musical background, people are having worries about that. Watch his interview. I mean, basically, in a nutshell, to like put it into a box, what he was trying to say is football is his job, his career, the way he's going to make money. He wants to be good at it. Music and rapping, that's his hobby. There's time for one and there's time for the other. And I thought when I listened to it, I was like, okay, fair enough. And it will put a lot to rest. The only issue he does have, he has made a complaint, and that is he's been given the dreaded number 24 jersey. 24. Yeah. Which we all know the last two cornerbacks that have worn that jersey haven't really panned out. So he's trying to find a switch. But that is
again. I think with the boss man fat thing, you know, we had Cole Beasley when he was with us. He started his rap career and everything like that. Nobody made a hell of a lot about that because he was focused on the game. Obviously, he'd established himself in the league.
Mhm.
But player who was it as well? It was Minsey a couple of years ago, the defensive lineman. He also was
Yeah.
he was a record producer and everything. And again, nobody really made anything of that. But obviously, because this guy's coming out of college and being drafted, again, it's people were making a big thing of this coming out. And he certainly allayed the fears within that interview, saying that it's business first for him, and he knows where the money's coming in.
And there's no harm in having a hobby. Even if the hobby is making music, there's nothing wrong with it. Arts and all the rest of it. Whatever you want to say, I have no problem with it. I don't see the issue at all. If that's how you're going to go. Sure, if it started sidetracking you from your job, like this is our hobby. If this was taking us away from our job, then it would be an issue. But it's not. So I think it's a no story, especially off the interview. Definitely, though, I do say go watch the interview if you do have any concerns. And when you listen to him speak, you go, okay. But let's get into the positional breakdown series. Running backs, guys. So let's start it off right at the very top. Is Zeke the best player? I know we had a lot of issues, and people will complain about with Zeke with last season, but is he still the best player on this roster?
In terms of running back?
As just best player?
No.
No?
No, I still think. I think in terms of last season, I would say no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Dak has certainly surpassed him, and the team is built around Dak now. We've talked numerous times about how Zeke's numbers have been reducing every year.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean Zeke's likely to get cut anytime soon. His 2021 and 2022 salaries are now fully guaranteed, so he's not. It's not going to be until tail end of next year that you're likely to get rid of him. If he continues on this downward spiral, what I would say there so far, if you look at social media and everything like that, all the videos that he's been posting of him training, this time last year, admittedly we were all locked down and not able to. Most of us couldn't even get out for training sessions. He was certainly sitting at home playing games on Twitch, doing interviews, and obviously there was the interview where people wondered whether he was actually stoned in it. So he certainly seems to have the right attitude, and I think last year the problems he had last year, I think, have actually spurred him on for this season. He's looking a lot leaner. He's looking a lot leaner, a lot more mobile. Again, great. You're running against wheelie bins and what have you. He certainly seems to be cutting quite well, and putting his foot in the rings where he needs to, and change the directions there, everything. So
and it's looking sharp and snappy as well. Everything's looking sharp and snappy, which is good. And as well as that, we're seeing him doing these drills now, but you have to take into account as well that he was doing physical and strength and conditioning training prior to this, pretty much from about February. So this is just the start of it.
I just want to clarify in my answer. I said no because I think Zach Martin is still the best player on this team. Outside of Dak, outside of normal regular Dak, I think it's Zach Martin very close behind that. Particularly when you place him on left and right tackle, and it was basically like he'd been there for the last 5 years of his career. He's such a linchpin. His floor is so high. You're always going to get a good performance out of Zach Martin. I think he's like a robot at times. He just doesn't break down. He really doesn't.
Well, I can give you some statistics on it. I mean, we'll use that as a marking off point. But I'm not a big fan of doing this, but it is a good way to show it. Just go in through some numbers, right? So if you look at Zeke's fantasy scores per game, yeah, how many fantasy points per game he scores? On average, he'll score 18.8 fantasy points when Zach Martin is playing. This year, when he wasn't playing, he averaged 10.1.
Yeah,
nearly double.
That's also because of Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins as well.
Yeah. But this was with Smith and Collins out. So when just Zach was in there. So when just Zach was in, 18.8. When Zach was gone, when Zach was gone, as well as the rest of the line. But when the rest of the line was gone and Zach was still in, that's what he was getting.
It just shows you their register numbers. They are stats that things fall off a cliff when Zach Martin isn't there. But I mean, I'm not going to get down on Zeke because he did have so many problems in front of him. We didn't have a balanced offense. So much was put on his shoulders. Just a quick glance at the stats. He didn't actually break 1,000 yards. He's just shy of 1,000 yards. So
yeah.
When you consider you lose both your tackles and your quarterback, and you've got questions at centre, that's not bad. That's really not bad.
Yeah. And what you got to look at as well, just to add on top of that, is we're saying that this was a bad season for him. There wasn't even that many running backs that eclipsed 1,000 yards this year. I think it was only 3 or 4. And Zeke's numbers, he was still a top 10 running back in terms of total yards. So you can say what you want with that. Go on, mate.
If you think as well, I mean, how many times do we see last year the point of first contact for Zeke was 2 yards back in the backfield, and he still, I don't think he had many negative yardage runs. Everything was 0, 1, 2. So, being able to turn, being hit in the backfield and still churn your legs to get back to the line of scrimmage, so you're not putting the team in 2nd and 13, 2nd and 14, whatever. Again, it all goes down to the running game is as much the offensive line as it is the backs. Obviously, the offensive line, they've got to create the holes, protect the quarterback, protect the running backs, and then you need a running back with vision.
And contact.
Zeke certainly showed he had the vision by getting back to the line of scrimmage and knowing where he could get through. So I think it was a bad season by his standards. As I say, I think it spurred him on for this season. There was talk last year that Pollard is probably more the style of back that Mike McCarthy's used to for his style of offense. So we'll need to see how. Obviously, that's probably why Zeke's slimmed down a little bit as well to get that same sort of physique as Tony Pollard. Obviously, they are two different players, and Pollard is more the sort of change of pace guy. But the more that you have this sort of two-headed monster that you can run the ball with, great.
Yeah, and funny you mentioned, because it was one of the things that I looked at, that Zeke was actually first in something, and that was having the lowest average contact rate from the moment he got possession of the ball. He was actually contacted at 0.8 yards on average. So if you think about it, when you take a step, That's probably about a yard. So defenders were getting to him before he could even take his first step, is basically what they're saying. So on average, yeah, he had the worst. But here's an interesting one, that when Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, and Dak are all on the field, Zeke actually averages 89 yards and a touchdown per game. And luckily for us, they're all coming back this season. And I know that you mentioned a little something earlier. Does the fact, though, for you guys, that over the last 4 years, his production has declined each year, does that concern you at all?
I think, again, I mean, we've how many games in those years. I think you'll find if you look at how long Tyron, how long Smith's been out, how long Collins have been out. That has an effect on it. Obviously, the second year Zeke had his issues with the law that is Goodall.
Yes.
Which led to, is he suiting up this week? Is he starting his suspension this week? Whatever. That had an effect on it. But last year as well, having the COVID, people, it has an effect on your cardiovascular system. Even sort of 4 months afterwards. 3-4 months afterwards. So he was bound to be behind his level of progress. Last year he wasn't going to be up as he should have been. Whether if he comes back this year and increases his yards, it's all put to bed. If it's down again this year, then something's wrong, and we get rid of him at the end of next season.
Yeah, I mean, because what you can't discount. I mean, look, he was the 4th pick of the draft. We took him 4th overall. Obviously, Ohio State. He's only 26 years old, and he's pretty much out of his rookie contract now. And in that time, because we can say what we want, that in terms of in Dallas Cowboys history, no one's gone. Surely come back. In Dallas Cowboys history, Zeke is actually 3rd in terms of running yards, and he's done that in that time. Yeah. So he's only behind Emmitt Smith and Tony Dorsett.
Yeah, I mean they took him 4th overall, and they're using him like they took him 4th overall. I think on average they're asking him to carry the ball 18 times a game. Yeah, that's without blocking and without pass catching as well. So it's not like they're getting scared of using them and they're taking carries off of them. I mean, your body is going to break down after a while. I think. I mean, see if you average that out. I think Zeke's according to ESPN, Zeke has carried the ball 1,400 times.
Yeah,
now,
already.
See if you consider. I mean, say a 5th of them are touchdowns. So the other 4/5, that's a tackle. That's somebody hitting against your body. So things are bound to slow down a little bit, especially when you use them at the rate that we do. Teams with two-headed running attacks, they spread the guys out and they give them shots on the bench and all that kind of stuff, and that can prolong their season. But that's because they're not as good as Zeke. See, if they were as good as Zeke, they'd be on the field as much as he is. I don't really, like Lauren said, I don't really have any concerns unless the numbers fall drastically, because if you have a quick look at his contract, it doesn't save as much money cutting them for this season and next season. So I think they're still committed to Zeke Elliott because they're going to have to give up a huge amount of dead money to replace him and bring somebody else in with a draft pick. So I still think they're committed. I think even in the down year, he still comes up with 1,000 yards. That's well above average across the league. Tony Pollard does his bit, but Zeke is still the bell cow. And until that changes, you're going to see good numbers from Zeke, even if it does go down again. See, even if it does, on average, say he runs for 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns, that's still good. It's a decline, but most teams would appreciate that from running back number one.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
There is no way that you're going to cut Zeke at all. I mean, if you cut him this season pre-June, you're talking about a 23.2 loss on the cap this year because everything gets accelerated. Cutting him after, it's still a 12 million loss. So we don't have that. You then have to restructure people to actually get that. So you can see, and this is why Stephen Jones is talking about that he would like as many of these rookies to make the roster as possible, so that you can start juggling some of the players that are past it but are contract heavy.
I mean, we've brought up Zeke's contract a couple of times, but I don't think any of us are close to cutting him.
No.
We're just saying that. Look, don't even consider that. I mean, even if you get frustrated with Zeke, say he causes a fumble and we should get rid of him. We're just saying, don't even consider cutting Zeke Elliott because it's not going to happen.
I mean, what's crazy is, and I said this in the season, that I went back looking at the fumbles, but when you go back and you look at the fumbles he's not in particular doing anything wrong. It just seems to be that he just went into I don't know what you want to call it, like a slump or whatever. But it just went wrong for him. But there was nothing in particular that you could say, you could pinpoint and go, that's why he was doing wrong. There was none of that.
It did frustrate. It did frustrate at the time, though. I remember being in the group at the time, and you're thinking, "Nah, come on, Zeke. We need you. We need you to at least not turn the ball over. We're struggling here." And I think because the fumbles were kind of on top of everything else, you're going, "Oh, come on."
Yeah, this as well.
This. I mean, if you're not going to get the first down, fair enough. Let us punt the ball away and start again. Whereas a fumble just turns the game on its head, and the amount we had going against us last year, we just didn't need it. And I think Zeke suffered from that. I think he was kind of like the kind of outball, the scapegoat. Oh, it was Zeke's fumble. Zeke caused, turning the game and all that kind of stuff. Forgetting that 3 of his starters are already in hospital dealing with injuries. The sword had to fall on Sunday, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot that you can say. Like, I actually think personally that, Tyron Smith, Lyle Collins, Zach Martin going out. And don't forget as well that we had a backup left tackle in Cam Irvin, and he ended up missing 6 games as well. So our backup, okay, you can say what you want about him, but even our backup couldn't even play in the most important position on the line. Which just a bad run. But for me, I actually think what was bigger for Zeke's lack of production was Dak not being there. I think that was huge. Yeah. That was more bigger than losing the offensive line, because teams were Andy Dalton. Okay. So I should have, but I didn't have the time. I should have gone back to look at how different defenses were stacking the box, while Dak was there and post Dak.
You want to know how important tackles are to teams? Cam Irving last month signed, I think it was 2 months ago, signed a $10 million 2-year deal with the Panthers. Yeah, that's how short the Panthers are of tackles.
and prior to Cam Irving, we had Cam Fleming, and Cam Fleming's signed with Denver for $3.6 million as well. So he'll be
games.
He'll be protecting Aaron Rodgers come June.
And they've gone and signed a big deal with somebody else.
Yeah. But let's look at it like this, right? He's $13.7 million on the cap this year. Last year was his worst season for the Cowboys. I know we can say about his second year with everything that's going on, writing that one off. But it was his worst season. Didn't get to 1,000 yards, just shy of 979. 6 touchdowns, but that was negated with 6 fumbles on the season. He was averaging exactly 4 yards per carry. So it's not that bad in that terms. It's not terrible.
Yeah.
The issue was that, like you say, that when the team lent on him, with everything else that went on, it just all fell apart. So my question to you is, for that 13.7, based on the stats that we just seen, what for you is most important? Is it not so important in terms of what, because he's a running back at the end of the day. Bear in mind, it's 17 games in a regular season as well. So more of a drain. I actually think they're going to carry more running backs due to that case, which we'll go down that in a moment. But based on all of that, what would be fitting for you guys? Is it not so much the personal statistics, more the team that they win in, and that he's part of that because teams are going to focus on him? Or what is it for you for that 13.7 million on the cap would be fitting for you guys?
For me, the number I'm looking at most with Zeke is the turnovers. I think that he has to at least cut that in half. I know it's a 17-game season. I know you've got hard tackles to deal with. But 6 is high for the responsibility that Zeke Elliott has. I think 6 is high, and it killed us in a couple of games. So for me, especially when you've got a defense as young as it is and as new as it is, we've got a brand new scheme to run with. The last thing you want to do is give the team the ball in our half for them, give the other team a short field to deal with. You want to give our defense touchbacks as opposed to fumbles on our own 40-yard line. And I think for Zeke's salary, we need him to take care of the ball that little bit better. I mean, I know it was probably psychological. It was probably, I can't believe I've had so many already. And then he goes and gets another one, and the pressure just starts piling down on top of him. But for me, I'm not concerned about touchdowns. I'm not concerned about yardage or per carry. For me, it's the turnovers. So I'm looking for at least for him to half that turnover ratio.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. What about you, Lon?
I agree. I think the main thing is cutting down on the turnovers. It's good. There's going to be an extra game this season. Last year he was out one game for injury, so to be just shy of 1,000 yards last year, only playing 15 games, it's quite conceivable if he'd only, I think he was only about 13 yards short last year actually. So if he'd played one more season or something like that and managed to get a first down, you're probably talking he broke the 1,000 yards. You got to remember what Zeke does is he doesn't have to come off the field. He can stay in as a pass protector. He can leak out to the backfield and catch the ball, move the ball down. You can even bring him down into a five wide set and use him there as well. So his diversity that he brings to the offense, both as a pass catcher, a pass protector, a running back, that's what you need. Just need him to cut down on the mental errors that he made last year with holding on to the ball. And yes, I'd love to see a few more touchdowns, but that's probably more down to Kellen Moore and what he does to scheme. Again, as we discussed in the draft show, when we were discussing the strengths and weaknesses, Kellen Moore always seems to have a problem inside the red zone, and that's something we need to focus on. You could quite easily see Zeke being Emmitt Smith was when, you got down to the 1 yard line and you piled Emmitt Smith over the top 22 times that one season. I'd love to see that again from Zeke. So I'm all for that.
Yeah, and here's an interesting one. I wrote this down because I thought, well, let's go through this, right? And here is an interesting one, right? Defenses that we are playing this year and how good they are against the run. Now, we've got the Bucks first, right? And I think this is going to spur on a little bit of a false narrative. So the Bucks were actually first in run defense last year. They absolutely caned it. Like, it wasn't even close either to who was second. The only other teams that were top 10 in run defense, New Orleans, Giants, so we play them twice, and Atlanta. The rest were in the bottom half in run defense. So that's the Chargers, who we've got early. Eagles, we got them twice. Carolina, we got them early. New England, we got them early. Minnesota, Denver, Kansas City, which is interesting. Vegas, who we got on Thanksgiving, and Arizona. None of them were in the top half. So I think for what Zeke is going to face in terms of defense, I know last year and this year and all the rest of it, but going off what you can see, you can project that Zeke is going to have, apart from that first game, the rest of it in the early half of the season is good. And what you want as well with a running back is confidence, because if your running back is running with confidence, suddenly you've got a different type of running back, because he's willing to do more work, more dirty work and all the rest of it, although Zeke's going to do that anyway. But yeah, I think that if you look at that at the early stages and what you're going to get out of him, apart from that first game, I don't know what you guys make of that. Especially with the Bucks, does that at all scare you?
The best time to play the Bucks is week 1.
Yeah,
I think the best time to play them is week 1, because we're hopefully at full strength.
Mm-hmm.
We've had weeks to plan for it. I know we've got preseason games in there, but your game plan is for week 1.
Yeah.
I think they'll keep certain things away from preseason to throw at Tom Brady in terms of defense.
Yeah.
Everybody will be freshest week 1. I'd rather play them week 1 than week 17 and need the win.
Yeah, when they're fighting for it. And especially when you look last year, the Bucks, the first half of the season, I mean, they were an average. They looked like an average team. They didn't really turn it on until about week 12.
They were talking on ESPN. I think Tom Brady gave an interview where he said it's like speaking English your entire life, and then somebody comes along and tries to teach you Spanish. And he credits that down to their slow start to the season. I mean, my only concern with the Bucks is that they've managed to keep all 22 starters, which is unheard of. That's unheard of after a Super Bowl win.
And a lot as well was Brady still trying to figure out the playbook. He did make comments about that.
And of course, I think there's a certain players will have taken a discount to play with Tom Brady.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that either.
And also, I like what you're saying about playing the Bucks early, because not just that, you also want your running back at his freshest against the best defense.
Of course.
First game.
Yeah, of course.
So he's most freshest. He's had less bumps, injuries, and all the rest of it. Great time to go and do it.
Yep.
Should we move on? Oh, go on.
No, as we were saying, that everybody's back on the Tampa Bay defense, but again, you've got a whole training camp you've got to get through. People will go down injured during training camp as well. Okay, and even in the sort of preseason games, although how teams approach that this year with only having 3, we've got the luxury, or the you could say it's a bad thing that we've actually got 4 games this year. That again, it's more people getting battered and bruised before the season.
The Hall of Fame game, I can see it being literally though all the undrafted free agents on the field.
Yes, yeah.
They're going to take it very quiet.
The Chargers, I think Nick Bosa had injuries last year, as did Melvin Ingram. So, and Melvin Ingram's no longer on the team. Bosa's back. So, the post that went out a couple of days ago, where you're talking about the strength of schedule for teams, you take that with a pinch of salt, because everybody, particularly this year with the reduced salary cap and the wholesale cuts going across the board, everybody being released from teams and finding new teams, you're going to have completely different defenses that you're going up against. So you have to play against what you're facing. We don't know. You can't say, okay, this year's going to be easy. How many times, we went from a Rod Marinelli scheme where we were actually middle of the pack, even top 10 in defense, and then look at last year under Mike Nolan, we gave up yards as if we were a sieve and water was running through it.
Yeah. So we'll get to that later on in the season.
Polite.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but I know what you're saying with the strength of schedule. It's a secret. It's a bit of a strange one, and I think people do overreact to the strength of schedule for what it is. But it's just something that you can base it on. That you can look at it and go, okay, where did they change? Where did they get better or worse? And you can look at last year and slightly adjust with that. But let's look at Tony Pollard, guys, the backup to Zeke. Now, we have seen my first note I made straight away was to know what Tony Pollard is watch a game where we didn't have Zeke. And we managed to have that where Zeke was out for a game. It was against the 49ers. 69 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 63 receiving yards, a 5.8 yard average. Much can be said about the 49ers, but bear in mind, their defense the year before was what got them to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And we seen, especially on the second touchdown run, I mean, he was snapping ankles and he was gone. I actually have him down as, and I said it last year that he was my secret weapon. He's my secret weapon this year again. Do you feel they're underutilizing Tony? Do you think?
Yeah, I think on any other team, he would be getting 50% of the snaps, as we've talked about. Teams that run by committee or have a two-headed monster. But that's just the way Zeke, again, going back, Zeke is a workhorse back, and you're not going to take him off the field to bring Tony Pollard in. I think again, perhaps there's going to be more done this year to try and get with them on the field. There was talk last year that you'd bring back the old sort of pro set offense where you've got both backs on the field, much like they did back in the days of Herschel Walker and Tony Dorsett being on the same roster.
21 personnel.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you can have something like that, and that it's a challenge in itself for defenses. Yeah, it'd be great to have them on the field. But yes, I think he is an underused weapon. He's certainly capable of taking on the mantle if Zeke does go down for a game or two. Whether he could handle being the bell cow for the whole season is a question, and I think that's been a question there all the time. He was never the bell cow in college.
In Memphis,
yeah. So we don't know how his durability is if he was playing and taking 25 touches a game.
Yeah. Because we've only seen it once. Go on, Greg.
One of the things I suggested last off-season, three top wide receivers, a top running back, a couple of highly serviceable tight ends. When are you meant to see Tony Pollard? But I think the 17th game is music to Pollard's ears.
Oh yeah,
because they're going to reduce the amount of carries for Zeke because it's a long, hard season at 16 games, let alone 17. Yeah. So I suggested 18 carries a game for Zeke. Watch that reduce to 14, maybe. Straight away, that's 4 carries per game. You're talking maybe an extra 40 odd carries for Tony Pollard. And it like you guys were saying there, he shone when Zeke wasn't there. So it's not like he's a dud just waiting to come on the field whenever Zeke's tired. He flashes, and that's they talk in training camp all the time. You've got to flash. You've got to make a splash play. Tony Pollard has done that, and I think, like I said, the 17th game is music to his ears.
Definitely, yeah. I agree that the extra game benefits not just Tony, the other guys further down the roster in terms of running back. It's the same with the linebackers too. But I mean, look, just to put it in perspective, we looked at the Zeke contract. So as we said, from Memphis, 4th round, taken 2019. So he's in year 3 of a 4-year contract, and he's only 24 years of age, and he's only a little bit over $1 million on the cap for what you're getting, which is a huge difference as well. Looking at his stats, where are we? So we've got 435 yards, 4 touchdowns, 6.3 yard average. But here's the most important thing I think people are missing on is his ability to play on special teams. People forget about that he does that work. And he's really good at it too. But based on what we were just saying with the 17th game and with running backs, do you think, and who we taken in the draft as well, do you think perhaps that's something we're going to see less of with Tony, or do you want to keep him on there because of his experience and that he can do it?
I still think to use all our draft picks, I think it suggests that they want to keep Tony for the offense. I'm still amazed that they used all those draft picks. I mean, realistically, are they all going to make the team? I don't think so. So I think if they are going to make the team, it's going to be on special teams, which means that you want them to play special teams because you want Tony Pollard for the offense. I would say, if anything, that's a reduction on special teams.
That's the way I look at it. Go on, mate.
No, I'd agree with that. But you need to actually have somebody to come up and take the special teams job off him. That's Pollard's there because he's done a serviceable job. Once he get over the stupid mistakes like trying to receive the ball on the 1 yard line and take it out. Or he had a fumble as well inside the bringing the ball out, and he fumbled and gave an easy turnover as well. That short field and put us behind the 8 ball straight away. So but again, if there's nobody that's actually comes in and claims the job, then yes, you put him in. And try and figure it out. Hopefully somebody progresses during the season to actually, keep it an open competition during the season as well, so that you bring in somebody on and, eventually you can spell him so that he can be on the offense more.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would say is a lot of people say about him as a 3rd down option. I don't think that's an ideal option. I like him more as, because I want to keep Zeke on the field on 3rd down. I know Zeke isn't a receiving type running back, which is what you're looking for on 3rd down, but it's Zeke's playmaking ability why I want to keep him on there, where I just think Tony just falls short of that. He's great, don't get me wrong. I don't want to use him as a 3rd down. I don't think he's completely ideal in that sense. But in terms of what you project for Tony, what are you thinking? Is it another 400, 500 yard season, or are we going to see one of his best seasons yet and they're going to utilize him more?
I want to see.
Just a projection.
I think you're going to see bigger numbers again, as we've talked about. That you're going to try and spell Zeke a little bit more this year for 7. You've got the extra game, the extra game in itself. You know, you're probably looking at bringing Pollard in for that as well. And you know, at what point is the season? So, you know, at what point do we have the postseason locked up and we can start to think about resting starters? You know, if we've got everything sorted by week 13, 14, you could potentially, that's another 3-4 week where you're able to spell Zeke a little bit more. Make sure he gets over the 1,000 yards and you use Pollard again. But if Kellen Moore can figure out a way to get them both on the field at the same time, flex one out to a receiver as well. You know, start them both in the backfield, flex one out to a receiver. That's a mismatch for the defense, because they'd probably be in their base set for something like that. Bring them out, and you've got Pollard up against a linebacker, and I'm sorry, that's in Pollard's favor more than a linebacker. So even if you've got somebody like Dion White or Isaiah Simmons or something like that, you're going to have, it's going to be in Pollard's favor on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, Greg? What's your projections?
Yeah, I think for me, it's fairly easy to say an increase. You've got the additional game. Looking at his stats just now, because they are steady.
Yes.
If anything, he's increased on touchdowns. So just by throwing in the additional game, you expect an advance. I would be aiming, if I was Tony Pollard, I'd be aiming for 700 yards and 6 touchdowns. Which is it's extremely good for a backup. I would say there's going to be an increase because he got 40 targets in the receiving game last year.
That's right. Yeah,
that's not to be sniffed at. That's good.
No. I'm trying to have a look. Where were we? 63. I did write it down somewhere. And 193 receiving yards.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not bad.
He's a Swiss Army knife. I would call him that. He's not just a standard running back.
That's just going to come in occasionally. Yeah. All right. But let's look further on down, right? Because I got a good one here. So Rico Dowdle. So he is. So this one is a bit of a weird one, but we can get around this one, and I can do a nice little hot take, and then we'll move down the other guys and wrap things up. So Rico Dowdle. So last year they brought him back. They brought him into the active roster. So effectively, he's on year 2 of a 3-year contract. 780K, 23 years of age. He's an undrafted free agent from South Carolina. So we did manage to see him in 2 games. He had 7 attempts with a 3.4 yard average. So we did get to see him. Here's a bit of a funky one. Before I get into it, do you guys have a take on Rico at all?
I think, well, we also saw him with pull off that long kickoff return as well.
Yes.
In that season. So again, going back to what we were talking about there about who's going to spell Pollard, perhaps he's one who comes in and becomes the special teamer. And again can be used. He's slightly bigger than Tony Pollard as well. So
yes, he is. Yeah.
Again, maybe use him within sort of goal line inside the 20s when you're only needing to pound the ball in. If you're needing to spell Zeke at all and you're down in the goal line, that could be an option there. But I think special teams is where he's going to need to shine first of all. Yeah. Especially, I mean, I think we've got another three running backs to go as well, and not including a fullback as well. Which
well, I mean, look, right. This is going to sound weird, but I got a hot take for you, or a take, if you like. That works quite well. everybody knows Trey Sermon, yeah? If you play fantasy football, which we'll get into in a minute, a lot of people are in that community are saying, take Trey Sermon early. This Trey Sermon character who's gone to San Francisco, all right, he started off a bit quiet over in Ohio State, finished off on an absolute stormer, right? And I know what you're thinking. What has this got to do with Rico? Trey Sermon and Rico Dowdle are exactly the same. They are the same player. If you put 2 tapes of them playing, you're going to see the same guy. And I can even prove it, right? That and I went back to go check some stats and what have you. So first of all, just looking at their years. In their last seasons of college, right, they both finished with 4 touchdowns. Rico finished with a total of 665 yards. Sermon, with that burst that he had towards the end, finished with 965. Bearing in mind, that includes playoffs as well. So playoffs and playing in the final. So he had the extra games. But, right, Rico is 5'11". Trey Sermon, 6 foot. Not much in it there. Rico, 213 pounds. Trey Sermon, 215. Hand size, exactly the same. 9.5 inches. 40 time, Rico, 4.54. Trey Sermon, 4.61. Right? Vert, 38 inches. Trey Sermon, 37. Broad, 127 for Rico. Trey Sermon, 125. They are exactly the same. It is an absolute match with what they are together. Yet Trey Sermon is a starting running back for the 49ers that everybody's saying take early. Rico is the 3rd running back on this roster. I actually think people are sleeping on this guy more than they should be. And we talked about the 17th game where you're going to see trying to take reps and snaps off Zeke to keep him fresh. So you put Tony in. So what are you wanting to do down the next road when it gets... And bear in mind, I know we talked about the games. The sample size that we have of him playing in the NFL is too small. It's way too small to make a judgment call on anything. And you've got to think he's going to be this year in camp, playing... they're going to rotate him in some more, which is going to give him snaps and reps with the first team. And then we're going to see... I actually think, based on, because of the extra game, we said, when Tony heard about that 17th game was music to his ears, it's more music to Rico's ears, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's credible. What I find crazy is you look at the numbers and the stats with Rico Dowdle and Trey Sermon. They are an absolute mirror. They are exactly the same. We just said it now. And yet you've got a starting... I know with the 49ers, it's the scheme and everything else. But it's not that far removed from what we do in Dallas.
Yep. Yeah, I certainly...
On you go, Lon. On you go.
No, I think, the first thing for him is not to rest on last year. Not that there's much to rest on anyway, but as long as he goes into camp and realizes that there is big competition for that 3rd running back spot, and that he needs to find a way of getting on the team, whether that be, and particularly as the 3rd in the depth chart, you're probably talking that you do need to excel on special teams. So, he needs to focus there first of all, get on the squad. And then the sky's the limit for him if he make the most of the opportunities he gets. And he will get opportunities this year because just with the way it is a game of attrition, it's bound to that, you're going to need to spell Zeke. You're going to need to spell Pollard at points as well. And there will be time. I'm sure Kellen Moore, if he's worth anything, he'll have packages where he could bring Dowdle in and use the best of his abilities as well. So,
and when it comes to, like we keep going on about with the 17th game of the running backs, you've got to have a backup plan for a backup plan. So if Tony's your backup plan, you need a backup plan for him as well with what you're going to do. So up steps Rico. So I actually like it. I think he could be a little bit of a surprise this year, with the way everything is set up. But the guy, go on, Greg.
On the 17th game, it's players like Tony Pollard and Rico Dowdle that voted for it. You will not find Dak Prescott, Zach Martin, Zeke Elliott. They will not have voted for the 17th game.
No.
These guys that want to make a paycheck and want to make a bigger paycheck and get an opportunity that voted for it. And fortunately for fans, there's a hell of a lot more Rico Dowdles than there are Zeke Elliott's. So that's why the 17th game got passed. So like you guys are saying, more snaps, more games, more opportunities, and I think Rico Dowdle will play into that, just like you guys were saying.
Yeah, 100%. And then behind him is the next guy, who is Siwo Olilua. It's hard to pronounce. He's more, more of a fullback from Texas Christian, TCU, undrafted free agent. He did appear in 2 games. He's more of a fullback based on what he does. He's actually in the last year, if they do decide to keep him around at all. What's more impressive of him are some YouTube videos of when he was in college, that this guy, he squatted like nearly a record-breaking 770 pounds, and then he decided to go and do one up on that and benched 425. You watch the video, is absolutely mad. And like when he's doing the squats, they got the entire team around and they're screaming to go, ah, and he does it, and you just watch it and you're like, oh my dear Lord. Squatting a car like.
He's your bulldozer for line set, and another back in there to create a hole for Zeke to get through, or whoever's behind him. I think you'll see. We don't have Jameez Olawale anymore.
No,
that's another one not easy to say. So the fullback, not that we use a fullback an awful lot, but the fullback is certainly his job for the taking, and I don't think any of the guys behind him are fullbacks. So unless he goes into camp and absolutely has an absolute nightmare in camp, I think he's got a good shot of being on the roster as well, because they will need somebody. And again, unless you're going to convert a tight end, bring him in for goal line sets as an H-back, which tight end is easier to play on the line and block from there than it is actually trying to find the hole. You need somebody who's got some experience of playing fullback, rather than having tight ends coming in and being H-backs and chipping into the holes, and you probably find they hit the wrong hole, and then Zeke's got a cutback one way or another, where he rather than taking the first option that he should be taking. So fullback's there for his taking, I think. So.
Yeah, and you've got to remember, Zeke does play better when there's a guy in front of him. Some running backs don't like it, some do. Zeke does. But looking at the undrafted free agents that the Cowboys took on this year, they got 2 other running backs. Jaquan Hardy from Tiffin. Now, I gone back, not bad numbers, 5'10", 225. What's most impressive with him, although he run a 4.56 40, what is crazy for the guy his size is he run a 6.98 cone. And when you watch him play, he plays compact as well, very tight and compact. Kind of like a CJ Anderson. That's a good way to put it. Like that tight, squatty, compact type guy. The only issue I've got is when we've just spoken about the 4 other guys before him, I wonder how he's going to try and break into the roster at all. This is a struggle with these guys. The other guy is Brendan Knox from Marshall, from Thunder and Turd. I love you really, Marshall. Don't worry, I love you really. Before people have a go at me for that comment. 887 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4.8 yard average. The guy, literally, you know, like we was talking about Zeke with the fumbling issues. None of that with this guy. I mean, this guy is like rock solid in that sense. The only trouble with him is he's got no elite traits. If you look at like his testing, it's like he's like in 13% percentile in nearly everything, you know. I was trying to remember. I think like his 10-yard split. I'm going off memory when I looked at it. His 10-yard split is like 1.7, and then his 40-yard was like close to 4. Sorry, yeah, his 10-yard was 1.7, and I think his 40 was close to somewhere around 4.7 as well. So it was a slow, and it's like 13 percentile in like the only thing he did have, which was good, was his bench. I think he had like 23 reps. So that's not bad. But I don't know what you guys want to add on the undrafted free agents. If there's anything you want to add to that,
yeah, it's. I think I said this again after the last draft. If I'm a running back, undrafted, I'm waiting for somebody else before I commit to the Cowboys, because you're not going to make.
Buried you're going to be.
You're not going to make the Cowboys as a running back.
Yeah,
you might make them as a special teamer, but our first two are set in stone before there's even a snap, unless barring injury. Like, God forbid, barring injury, our first two are set in stone. So
I think the next two behind pretty much are too.
Yeah. So I mean, what do you hope to achieve? But these guys were probably just happy to get a phone call, because
it is what it is. Yeah,
you're going to take a photo. I mean, if Dallas is the only team on the line, who's going to turn it down? You know, so. They might do something. They might flash. There might be a bit of tape. The phone might ring for a practice squad slot or something along those lines. If they come in and have a good camp, best of luck to them. But it's like you're saying, Mike. It's highly, highly unlikely they end up a Cowboy.
It's a tough one to break. Yeah, and I mean, like you say, really, it's the Cowboys more covering themselves, A, for camp and B, for injury, and then you're just hoping that maybe somewhere these guys can break into a special team and work forward from that. Yeah. But even with these two guys at the very end, I don't know if they can. You never know, though. You never know.
It's like one of these when you'll have been watching Hard Knocks and you see the guys getting called into the head coach's office, and
bring your playbook.
They're not particularly cut up. They're just, the inevitable has happened, and they're like, oh yeah, thanks for the chance. I'll go away and be a lawyer now, or be an accountant or something along those lines.
A lot of it is getting on the field and generating a name for yourself, because you know, for these guys, it's like the saying is you're always in a job interview. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to put tape together for other teams then that look and go, oh, that's a trait or something that will fit for us, or you know, their guy goes down, give this guy a ring. We've seen him, he's something that fits what we're trying to do here, and really that's what you're trying to do. But that is the running back position, guys. A quick note though, fantasy football news. Oh yeah, that's right. So two things. There will be an ongoing, and there will be a league coming up when the season starts, where you can win a Dallas Cowboys hat and football by old Graham there. He's got a hold of it. How you get entering to win it, we will get into that when we get closer. But if you're part and a member of the UK Cowboys, the leagues will be getting set up very soon. We will put a post up to get things and balls rolling, because we've had some comments about it. So we'll put the post up. It'll go up. And then, depending how much interest people and members get involved, depends on how many leagues we set up. So that is all coming up. So some interesting news on that one. So keep an eye out for it. It will be coming up. So we'll just quickly pay the bills, and I'll let these guys take it away. So, of course, yes, we are sponsored by Cowboys Experience. The stadium is open. If you're watching baseball, numbers on those crowds are creeping up too. But if you are going to a game this year, make sure you go through Cowboys Experience. They've got game day tickets, stadium tours, and tailgate parties you won't want to miss. And just because you are lovely, lovely people and you listen to our show, if you use the booking code UK Cowboys, what happens, folks?
You get free stuff.
You get some free stuff.
In the words of our Rich, don't be a clown. Get free
there
stuff.
it is.
Free stuff. Use the code.
Yes, just for saying the words. Just for saying the words. So, of course, though, if you do go to it, make sure that you give us your photos, and we'll put them all over our social media. The guys are putting the packages together because we did get messages and questions about it. It's all at the moment. It's all up in the air because nobody really knows at the moment like what the numbers are, so they can't put a definitive price on everything. But it is all coming out very, very soon. Speaking to the guys over there, it's literally seconds away. So that's exciting stuff. So make sure you get your vaccination so you can fly. That's a big one.
I can just hear Paul praying at the TV for week 1.
But that is the running backs. Next week, we look at the wide receivers. So a lot more people to look at there. I mean, that list is going to be deep. We'll have to run through the news and updates pretty quick on that show. There are a ton of wide receivers to look at. But that is it from myself and from the Cinnamon and the Senior. The Scottish double there. So we will be back next week, next Thursday, 9 o'clock as standard. But from myself, Graham and Lon, we'll see you all again next week.
How about them Cowboys?
How about
Have a good one, guys.